Dogs are known for their loyalty and devotion to their owners. They have been bred for thousands of years to be companions and helpers to humans, and as a result, they have a strong instinct to form close bonds with their human families. This loyalty can manifest in many ways, such as a dog following their owner around the house, always wanting to be near them, and showing protective behavior towards their family members. Dogs may also show their loyalty through their willingness to please their owners and follow their commands, and their eagerness to spend time with their family and participate in activities together. Ultimately, a dog's loyalty is a result of the strong bond they form with their owners, and it is one of the many things that make dogs such beloved pets. In today's story, we'll tell you about a story where a man named Nick rescued a little puppy, but after a year, he could not see what kind of animal it was. He lived in a house on the outskirts of a forest with a shepherd dog named Terry. Nick loved Terry very much, and they spent lots of time together. They especially liked to wander through the woods, enjoying nature and each other's company. Terry was a very obedient and well-mannered dog. She understood every command Nick gave her and was always loyal to him for this reason. Nick felt comfortable letting her off the leash when they were on their way. She never wandered far and would always come back quickly when he called. One day Nick and Terry went out for one of their walks through the forest early in the morning. It was a lovely morning and a sunny day, and Nick brought some food for them so they could spend some days in nature. On this day, everything went as usual. Terry happily ran around and obediently retrieved the stick. He is occasionally there. However, when Nick stopped to admire some trees, he suddenly realized that his dog was no longer around. He called for her, confident that as soon as she heard his voice, she would immediately return as always, but she didn't respond. Nick began to worry because they had never happened before. He began to run through the woods and called for her as loud as he could, but to no avail. Nick realized that something must have happened to his dog because she would never deliberately ignore his calls. He wandered through the forest, calling her name, and tears ran down his cheeks. Out of desperation, he asked the villagers to ask local residents for help. He was worried his dog had been captured in a trap left by poachers or caught by a wild animal. As Nick was leaving the forest, there was rustling in the nearby bushes. He jumped in surprise and fear. If it had been Terry, she should indeed have. She must have emitted a joyful bark, so this must be some animal hiding in the bushes. Nick got a hold of himself and gently peered into the bushes. How happy he was to discover that it was indeed his dog, Terry, but there appeared to be something wrong with her as she didn't sound after a moment. Nick realized there was something stranger in her mouth. As Terry came closer, Nick could see that it was a tiny puppy in Terry's mouth. She brought a foundling to her master and laid it gently at his feet, and he took this little puppy in his arms and took a closer look. It was a brand new little black puppy. His eyes weren't even open, yet Terry expected her owner to help somehow. Nick couldn't let her down, so he brought the tiny puppy home. He didn't know what to do with him, but he decided to feed him until he could eat himself. The following 2 weeks were hard for Nick. The puppy had to be fed every 2 hours with a special bottle. He constantly wanted to eat whenever he wasn't sleeping. Terry never left her new friend. She kept him warm by sleeping beside him, and Nick couldn't figure out what kind of breed this dog was. He thought it was a wolf, but he couldn't be sure. The puppy quickly grew and could eat and move around on his own. He got into everything and constantly made a mess. Terry loved to play with him as Nick cheerfully watched, but during one of their games, Nick was amazed to see the little black puppy climb to the very top of the closet all on his own. What kind of dog can climb so quickly made Nick a little uncomfortable, not knowing what animal he had brought into his home. The next day Nick brought him to the veterinary clinic so that an experienced doctor could determine what species the strange animal belonged to. The veterinarian looked at the animal for a long time and then determined him to be a black sable baby. He advised me to get rid of him as soon as possible because these animals are very curious and playful and as a result, can cause a lot of damage. Nick found himself very confused as to whether to keep this tiny little creature with him or hand it over to zoo authorities. He had an emotional attachment to Sable because of the time he had spent feeding him up. But Nick was determined to keep Sable and raise him despite the veterinarian's advice to get rid of Sable. When Nick brought this Sable back home, he put him on the floor. Terry licked him for a while and went into an emotional state, thinking how this little creature would survive without him. It was evident how much the dog missed him while he was away, so Nick talked for a long time about what to do and whether he should follow the vet's advice and release him back to the forest. But seeing how attached Terry had become, he decided to keep him. Then one day, when he came home from work, Nick discovered a terrible mess. The Sable managed to open the closet door and dump all the clothes on the floor, which he and Terry then rolled around on. This made Nick so angry that he decided to take the Sable into the forest and leave him there. He expected the Sable to immediately rush to the wild but was wrong. Instead, he just stood next to Nick and Terry and waited. At that moment, he realized that the animal was no longer wild and was now responsible for a new pet. He also understood that they couldn't separate these two new friends when they returned home, and Nick began to figure out a way to equip his home to be suitable for Sable to live. He locked up all the cupboards and closets and provided empty shelves for the Sable to freely climb. In short, it was now Nick and Terry's home and the little Sable's. Nick's family was hesitant about his choice to raise a Sable. Whether or not it is a good idea to keep a Sable as a pet is a matter of personal opinion. Some people may enjoy having a Sable as a pet, while others may not. And Nick was one of them who literally enjoyed having Sable as a pet. So, it was a tough decision to keep Sable at his home as a pet. But at the same time, he is aware of several factors before deciding to stay a Sable as a pet, including the potential legal consequences, the Sable's natural habitat and behavior, and the level of care and attention that the animal requires. It is always best to thoroughly research the topic and consult with experts before deciding to keep a Sable as a pet. Let us know in the comments what you would have decided if you were Nick. And if you like the courage and determination of Nick to have a Sable at home, we would like you to enjoy this story and share it with others to get to know their decision to keep a Sable. We keep telling stories on our channel. If you want to watch such stories in the coming day, please subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon so that you'll be notified when our next video goes live. See you in the next episode. Take care and have fun.